Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn. It's this one. We're AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. When I heard that Tucker Carlson got a sit-down with Devon Archer, I didn't expect those two to have the rollicking good time they had talking about Devon's relationship with Hunter Biden and Biden Incorporated.
Yeah, they enjoyed themselves. They seemed comfortable with each other.
Devon Archer explained how they came together to work together on this private equity venture called Rosemont Seneca. And what exactly Hunter Biden's role was and all that.
The initial idea around the business, they were going to provide, the government insight and an additional network to raise capital and then, deal with regulatory issues that you might have at the corporate level.
Right. Regulatory issues.
Exactly.
Okay, so that would be more his area.
Right, that would be his space.
Right. But did he have a sophisticated understanding of regulation, do you think?
I think that he led a team that had a sophisticated...
Okay, because I lived in Washington a long time around a lot of regulation. Also a very complex area.
Absolutely. I think you got to be an expert in knowing the guy, and he was the guy that was the expert in knowing the guy.
He was an expert in knowing the guy.
Right.
And who was the guy he knew?
Well, he knew a lot of people, but obviously there was some familiar, his brother, his father, some of his father's siblings. So he knew a lot of people.
That Devon Archer is a real cut up. I got to tell you, that wasn't the end of his.
Zanies and Schomburg.
Yeah, it was not the end of his comedy routine. The two of them. I mean, it was a regular vaudeville act. Then they turned their attention to what Tucker did. Their next bit was the big guy's speakerphone calls. Hilarious.
I mean, over a 10-year partnership, I would, the number I'm going with is 20. That's probably the amount that I kind of record. Yeah, a lot, you could say.
So Joe Biden, who's very much a product of Washington, of course must have known that he was calling in to effectively a business meeting that his son was having. I mean, he must have understood that was kind of what his son was selling.
Well, that's hard for me to speculate on that.
But I guess my question, just to keep it to the facts, Joe Biden, then the sitting vice president, knew that there were Hunter's business associates in the room.
Yeah, I think I could definitively say at particular dinners or meetings, he knew there were business associates, and or if I was there, I was a business associate too.
Yeah.
So I think, or if any of the other colleagues from the D.C. office or the New York office were there. So yeah, at times there were. From the to be completely clear on the calls. I don't know if it was an orchestrated call in or not. It certainly was powerful, though, because if you're sitting with a foreign business person and you hear the vice president's voice, that's prize enough. I mean, that's pretty impactful stuff for anyone in the world.
And that bit kept going. I mean, it went on longer than Jim Gaffigan's Hot Pockets bit. Just as funny, too.
It's been reported, and I know that it is true, that Hunter and his brother were very close to their dad.
Absolutely.
Which I think is great.
Yep.
I've got a lot of kids. I'm very close to them, talk to them every day.
Yeah.
Never called them on speaker during a business meeting. That's weird. You've got a lot of kids. You're close to them. Do you call them on speaker during business meetings?
Do I call?
I mean, what is that? A grown man calling his dad on a speakerphone during a business meeting?
Right. And to be clear, sometimes the call was coming in and the speaker would go on. So it's just the presence. You have to be, I mean, you understand DC, right? So the power to have that access and that conversation, and it's not in a scheduled conference call, and it's a part of your family. That's like the pinnacle of power in DC.
100%. I guess I'm pivoting against the lie that I'm hearing people tell with a straight face. Congressman Goldman, for example, that we don't really know what was going on. Really? You're taking a call from the vice president and you put it on speaker. It's not just, hey, Dad, I'm in a meeting with some buddies.
Right.
It's let me put my dad, the vice president, on speaker.
Yeah. Yep. In the rear view, it's an abuse of soft power, I'd say.
An abuse of soft power.
Great phrase. For more on this hilarity, we're pleased to be joined by David Harsanyi, senior editor at the Federalist, author of Eurotrash, Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas of a Dying Continent. David, thanks for joining us. I mean, it was one uh, laugh after another in this discussion between Tucker and Devin Archer.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just another person unconnected from the other people who have made this claim that Joe Biden was clearly having conversations or with people who are involved in a business while he was vice president, knowing very well, either being used to create the perception that he was part of that business or actually participating in a more concrete way. And that, in my view, is corruption.
Yeah, it also seems to me, you try to understand the nature of these people coming together, and then you assess the credibility of Devin Archer, who's a convicted felon. I'm sure Team Biden will be bringing that up in short order to, suggest that he can't be taken at face value. But how they came together, and it strikes me that Devin Archer, who actually has a business background, just saw this as an opportunity, this relationship as an opportunity to have that sort of access that he described. He mentioned in the interview a couple times Icarus, and that sort of both he and Hunter flew a little too close to the sun. They thought this was going to be great, and then it generated a little too much scrutiny and a little too much heat, and it all broke apart. But it doesn't seem like he has any particular use for the Biden family other than this business venture that he thought was going to work out, which is why he's so accessible. I mean, if you did, why would you sit down with Tucker Carlson?
Right, and the fact that there are a bunch of really shady criminal people around Hunter Biden is not exactly a check mark for him, right? I mean, he was obviously involved in stuff and people that were not above board. But moreover, I keep going back to this. I just think that we talk about Hunter Biden, and it's incredibly important to talk about him. But the fact is, this is really a Joe Biden story, right?
Course,
I mean,
right.
it's And the Joe Biden part of this story, he has yet to answer why he made these calls. He's yet to answer if he knew about them. I mean, he lied about it previously, but since then, he just hasn't spoken about it. It's a complete blackout over this stuff. I mean, a whistleblower at the IRS has nothing to do with Devon Archer, right? I mean, and they both make the same claim about the president of the United States. It seems to be a massive story.
Well, do you think that this is going to bring down President Biden? And at least,
No,
at the very least,
so.
bring down his campaign? I mean, this is pretty damning information.
I sometimes feel like we're scandal-proofed as a society,
Yes.
honestly. Like, there's almost nothing that you can say to a Trump fan, for instance, or a Biden fan that's going to change their mind, whether it's true or not true. So I think there's sort of baked in 40% of people who are partisans, and they don't really care. I mean, I honestly think that a lot of Democrats know that Biden did this, and they just don't really care about it, so they're playing defense. So my answer to you is I don't know, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, David, as the New York Times reported just the other day, it has long been known that Joe Biden spoke with Hunter Biden's business associates. This is sawing sawdust. You're trying to manufacture something that doesn't exist, and that's what they're going with.
It's like going back into stories and putting 7 grandchildren instead of 6 grandchildren into the stories, like Orwellian rewriting of history.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, it's just incredible. I mean, for me, because I've been in journalism a long time, it is just incredible that you have a whole entire industry, basically, or almost all of it, playing defense for a president involved in a scandal. Listen, you can go after Trump and Biden at the same time. There are plenty of people in newsrooms who can do that. You don't have to do what you're doing, and yet, it's what's happening.
I want to get your take on DeSantis's campaign, because we talked to Ken Cuccinelli a little bit earlier in the show, and we didn't get as deep in the campaign as I wanted to. But here's a question that I have, and I'm a big DeSantis fan. I'm unimpressed with his campaign so far. And I got to say, one thing just strikes me as odd from a campaign perspective. He has this record of success in Florida, and he cruised to re-election, which he tells everybody about all the time, and that's certainly part of his messaging. That makes sense. And yet, there are no surrogates for his campaign. It may be like Cuccinelli, maybe some wealthy dude who used to be a Trump voter, a Trump donor, and now he's a DeSantis donor. But the whole point is you had the success in Florida across these range of issues. So why don't we hear from like regular people on behalf of DeSantis whose policy choices made a positive impact on their lives? It seems like it's very solitary rather than broad-based as you would think it would be with a record of success that he keeps referencing but doesn't put faces to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think his campaign initially started out, as the kids say, too online. You know what I mean? Too many people focused on convincing unconvincible people or getting into ridiculous arguments on Twitter and social media and things like that, rather than somehow getting out there. Though I have to say, he's in a tough spot because he's basically whelming. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, so Vivek Ramaswamy comes out of left field. He's obviously a successful biotech entrepreneur, and he wrote that book Woke Inc. and so forth. But I mean, really, you had to read the Wall Street Journal pretty religiously to have any idea who Vivek Ramaswamy was before he entered this race. And he's generating a lot of interest. You would think DeSantis coming in with all the fanfare and the record would be generating a lot of interest, but he's just not. And they're sort of in denial that he isn't, even as they cut staff, and there's all sorts of rumors that are very unhelpful to the campaign, and they're making arguments that just are not supported by the data. You know, I can win and Trump can't. Well, the New York Times Siena comes out 44-44, and in the early states, it's sort of the same thing. I mean, there's no
doubt, in Florida, but it's tough to get out there. I will also say this, though, just throw this out there. Most normal people are not thinking about primary politics right now. It's far off for them. I'm not sure that the polling is always, very completely accurate to what's going on. Like Vivek Ramaswamy, he, I guess, like 5-6% sometimes. I'm pretty skeptical that 5 or 6% of Republican voters in the country know who he is or anything really about him. I think they're just searching for
people you're waiting for to tune in actually tuned in. So you can be gone before it gets to that point. Kamala Harris was too, for that matter, on the other side.
And people have gotten so dogmatic, and I don't even know if this is bad or good, frankly, but, all the attention paid to Trump and everything, all these sort of indictments and everything, it creates this, I think, environment where people rally around the person they feel is being attacked, and that has something to do with Trump's sort of popularity as well.
Yeah. His ratings go up every time he gets indicted.
Yeah.
One more indictment.
One
indictment the president, yeah.
Yeah, one more to go. Talk about living in an alternate dimension. Rooting for indictments. David Harsanyi, senior editor at the Federalist, author of Eurotrash, Why America Must Reject the Failed Ideas of a Dying Continent. Thanks for joining us, David.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Let's face it, talking